Filthy animals like you don't belong here. The officer's voice ripped through the air like a whip. His jaw clenched, spit flying as his words echoed against the marble pillars of the federal courthouse. The steps, grand, polished, symbolic, suddenly felt like a stage for humiliation. Every phone in the crowd tilted up, recording. Fingers whispered across glass screens. Someone gasped. Someone else muttered, "Did he just say that?" And in the middle of it all, one woman stood perfectly still. Maya Johnson, 30 years old, black, dressed in a cream-colored blazer that draped to her knees, heels planted on the cold stone like anchors. Her hair, pulled high into a bun, revealed a face that was calm, controlled, unreadable. She wasn't a protester. She wasn't lost. She wasn't anyone's filthy animal. But no one knew that yet. The officer leaned closer, his forehead nearly colliding with hers. His badge glinted beneath the September sun. Captain Dale Rowan. His eyes burned with contempt. "You think you can just waltz into my courthouse with that briefcase? You're done. Step back before I make you." The crowd shifted uneasily. Murmurs spread like cracks in glass. A young law student standing near the steps whispered to her friend, "That's not procedure. This isn't how security works." The friend kept his camera up, hands trembling, eyes wide. Maya didn't flinch, not at the spit hitting her cheek, not at the fingers digging into her sleeve. She lowered her gaze just enough to glance at the officer's hand gripping her arm. Then she looked back at him, steady even. Her voice came soft, but sharp enough to cut. "Check your facts before your tone." The words startled him more than a scream would have. The arrogance in his face flickered, then hardened. "Facts. Here's a fact you're trespassing. And that bag in your hand? Suspicious as hell. Hand it over." He reached for her briefcase. She didn't resist. She didn't move at all. She simply watched as his hand hovered inches from the handle, the way a surgeon might watch a scalpel before it cut the wrong artery. From the top of the stairs, another officer barked, "Captain, you need backup?" His voice was casual, mocking, as if this was entertainment. People in the crowd gasped again, louder this time. One woman near the front shook her head violently, muttering, "This is wrong. She hasn't even raised her voice." But Rowan didn't hear them, or he didn't care. He pressed forward, yanking the briefcase from Maya's grasp. The latch clicked under his fingers. He sneered. "What's inside? Fake documents? Stolen files? Fraud, I bet." Maya's lips parted slightly, just enough for words to escape. "Careful," she said. "You're holding more than you can carry." The officer laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. He lifted the case high, displaying it to the crowd like a trophy. "Ladies and gentlemen, here's what happens when imposters try to sneak into federal property." Phones flashed. Voices rose. Someone shouted, "That's illegal." Another yelled, "Give it back." The atmosphere tightened, heavy, charged. And still Maya stood in silence. No panic, no tears. Just that same calm, unshakable presence that unsettled even those who mocked her. What no one realized, not yet, was that the woman they were watching wasn't a stranger trying to break into justice. She was the one who had built the very foundation they stood on. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Maya. On the courthouse steps, the crowd held its breath. The officer tightened his grip on the briefcase, his words carved through the silence. "You don't belong in this court. People like you never will." And that was the moment the balance began to shift. The briefcase dangled from Captain Rowan's hand like a stolen prize. Cameras followed every movement, each second etched into the digital memory of strangers. A hush spread across the courthouse steps. Not silence, but a heavy pause, the kind that swallows words before they're spoken. Rowan smirked. "This is evidence of fraud. You're done here." His voice carried, sharp and theatrical, as if he were addressing a jury that had already ruled against her. Maya didn't move. Her heels stayed rooted on the granite. The crowd leaned in, expecting her to shout, to fight, to plead. Instead, she lowered her chin slightly, eyes locked on Rowan. Calm, still, unyielding. That calm made people restless. A young man in a suit muttered, "She looks more composed than he does." The woman next to him whispered, "Why isn't she defending herself?" And then, louder, "Because she doesn't have to." Phone zoomed closer. Another officer approached, a younger one, helmet strap half loose, uncertainty flickering in his posture. "Captain, maybe we should—" Rowan cut him off with a glare. "Stand down. She's lying her way into the system." That word lying struck like a spark. A college student at the edge of the steps raised her phone higher. "No," she said firmly. "I saw her check in. She belongs here." Gasps rippled. For the first time, the tide shifted. Rowan's jaw tightened. He yanked the briefcase open with a snap. Papers slid out, fluttering like broken wings across the steps. Gasps became shouts. A man's voice rang out. "You can't do that! That's her property!" Maya's gaze followed the papers, then returned to Rowan. No raised voice, no sudden gesture, just 4 words, delivered with the weight of stone. "You're out of line." "Oh." The phrase hit harder than any scream. The younger officer flinched. Several in the crowd cheered, clapping as though they'd heard a verdict. Phones stayed high, capturing not just an officer's abuse of power, but a woman's refusal to be erased. And still Maya didn't budge. Her silence was louder than the captain's tirade. She was waiting for the moment the truth would demand its place in the open. The storm had only begun. Captain Rowan's boots scraped against the marble as he closed the gap. The papers he'd scattered lay like fallen feathers around Maya's feet. He jabbed a finger at her chest. "You think standing still makes you innocent? You think that calm face means anything here? Not in my court." The crowd recoiled. A man shouted, "She hasn't done anything!" Another voice rose, "You can't touch her like that." But Rowan didn't stop. His hand clamped onto Maya's shoulder, squeezing hard, the way a vice crushes steel. He leaned down, hot breath against her ear. "You don't belong in this country's justice. Step back or I'll make you disappear." Phones trembled. One woman sobbed quietly, holding her daughter close. The law student's voice cracked as she called out, "That's assault!" Her words carried, echoing across the steps. Maya didn't flinch, not once. She tilted her head just enough to meet Rowan's eyes. Her reply was quiet, deliberate. "You mistake silence for weakness. That's your last mistake." The younger officer, the one with the loose helmet strap, hesitated. His voice wavered. "Captain, maybe this isn't right." Rowan snapped back, louder than before. "She's trespassing. She's a fraud. Security protocol says remove her." But the crowd wasn't convinced anymore. A ripple of voices swelled. "No, we saw everything. She did nothing wrong." And in that charged moment, with every lens pointed, every whisper sharpening into defiance, Maya remained anchored to the stone steps, calm, composed, unmovable. The storm was no longer just around her. It was gathering for her. The officer's grip lingered on her shoulder, heavy, almost desperate. Around them, the courthouse steps buzzed, with outrage voices rising, cameras flashing, tension thick as storm clouds before lightning. Maya exhaled once, slow and steady, then slid her hand into the pocket of her blazer. The motion was deliberate, unhurried, as if she were reaching not for defense but for destiny. When her phone appeared, the crowd leaned closer. Rowan barked, "Put that away. You're not filming anything here." His hand shot toward the device, but she drew it back just enough to keep it in her control. Her thumb tapped the screen twice. No video app, no camera lens, just a silent, coded action. A chime vibrated faintly through the phone's speaker. One word flashed across the display in stark white letters. Protocol. Active. Somewhere beyond those steps, in a corporate office 3 blocks away, screens lit up. Alerts cascaded across monitors. A voice crackled in her earpiece, calm and efficient. "Boardroom connected. Compliance officers online. We're watching, Miss Johnson." Maya's lips curved not into a smile, but into certainty. She didn't answer out loud. She didn't need to. The crowd noticed the glow of her screen, the quiet authority in her posture. A teenager whispered, "She called someone." The law student's eyes widened. "No, she's calling them." Rowan slammed the briefcase shut, veins pulsing at his temple. "Don't play games with me. You're in contempt before you even step inside that courtroom." But his words no longer filled the air. The air belonged to her. Maya finally spoke, her tone steady, unshaken. "Careful, Captain. Every word you speak now is evidence." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The younger officer looked down at his boots, shame etched across his face. A woman near the front lifted her phone higher and said firmly, "She's right. We're all witnesses." Rowan froze, caught between rage and the slow realization that control was slipping. His grip tightened on the case like it was the last thread he had left. Maya, still calm, raised her phone slightly, not as a weapon, but as a reminder. Her voice was low, almost a whisper, yet it carried. "This isn't just a courthouse anymore, it's a courtroom, and you just put yourself on trial." The crowd erupted not in chaos, but in solidarity. Applause broke out, a rhythm that grew louder, firmer, undeniable. And for the first time, the captain's posture faltered. The applause didn't die down, it rolled across the courthouse steps like thunder, echoing off the tall marble columns. For Captain Rowan, it was no longer background noise. It was a verdict delivered by strangers. His eyes darted nervously from phone to phone, every lens aimed like a weapon he couldn't disarm. And then, from the middle of the crowd, a voice rang out. It wasn't loud at first, but it carried an edge of conviction that pierced through the chaos. "I saw her," the young woman said, lowering her phone. "She checked in this morning. Her name is on the docket." All heads turned. It was the law student, the one who had been recording from the very beginning. She wasn't hiding anymore. Her face flushed, but her voice grew steadier with each word. "You're lying about her," she said directly to Rowan, "and everyone here knows it." The crowd erupted. Cheers, whistles, shouts of agreement. Dozens of phones swiveled toward the student, capturing her transformation from passive observer to bold witness. Rowan's face went red, his composure slipping like sand through clenched fists. "Stay out of this," he barked. "You're obstructing an investigation." But the crack had spread. One man in a gray business suit stepped forward, pushing through the crowd with surprising calm. He lifted his hand as if giving testimony. "I work across the street," he said loudly, his voice practiced, commanding. "I saw Miss Johnson arrive. She walked in orderly, presented her documents. No disruption, no deception. She was treated like a criminal the second she set foot on these stairs." Murmurs rippled like wildfire. Then the first chant started soft at first, almost hesitant. "Let her in! Let her in!" It grew louder, bolder, until the whole front of the courthouse was vibrating with the demand. "Let her in! Let her in!" Rowan's jaw locked. His voice cracked as he tried to scream over them. "She's a fraud! A danger to the integrity of this court!" But even as the words left his mouth, they rang hollow, drained of the certainty he once wielded. Through it all, Maya hadn't moved. The glow of her phone lit her palm, but her eyes never flicked toward it. She stayed anchored, gaze steady, posture unshaken. When the chant reached its peak, she turned her head slightly toward the student and the man in the suit. A single nod, not a smile, not applause, just a quiet acknowledgement. Then her voice smooth and resonant. "Truth doesn't need to shout, it only needs to be spoken." The student swallowed hard, but she didn't back down. "Then I'm speaking it," she declared. "She belongs here." The chant shifted instantly, like a current redirected. "She belongs here, she belongs here." Dozens of voices became hundreds, echoing into the courthouse windows. Rowan froze. The very ground beneath him seemed to tilt. His authority, the weight he had relied on for years, was no longer his. It belonged to the crowd, and the crowd had chosen Maya. The courthouse steps were no longer a trap. They were her stage. The chants shook the courthouse windows, a pounding rhythm that no gavel could silence. "She belongs here! She belongs here!" Each voice was a hammer, striking Rowan's crumbling authority. The captain's face twisted. Rage replaced reason. His shout cracked like broken glass. "Enough! Officers, remove her now!" Two men in uniform stepped forward, heavy boots clanging against the stone. They pushed through the crowd, their shoulders squared like battering rams. Phones rose higher. The crowd's roar shifted to gasps. Someone shouted, "Don't touch her!" Another, louder, "The world is watching!" Maya didn't move. She stood centered on the steps, phone still in hand, her presence a fixed point, while chaos swirled around her. The younger officer, the one with the loose helmet strap, hesitated. His boots faltered against the stone. He glanced at Maya, then at the forest of phones. His lips parted, but no words came. Rowan noticed and exploded. "Do your job, rookie! Drag her out!" His finger stabbed the air like a spear. The rookie froze. The crowd erupted in boos. And in that vacuum of hesitation, Maya finally acted. She lifted her phone, tilting the screen toward the sky. The glow was unmistakable. A red icon pulsed across it. Live stream active. Gasps rippled. The nearest bystanders craned their necks to see. A voice from the back shouted, She's broadcasting. Rowan lunged, hand outstretched to snatch the phone. But Maya's words stopped him cold. "Every word you've spoken," she said, her voice low but slicing through the noise, "is already logged. Every shove, every insult, every lie sent directly to the oversight board." Silence fell, sharper than the shouting had been. Even the chant died mid-breath. The weight of her revelation pressed down on every chest, heavier than the courthouse stone. Rowan blinked, stunned. His hand hovered inches from her phone, but he didn't dare touch it. From the crowd, the law student's voice rang out again, stronger than before. "She's right. I saw the feed go live." Dozens of phones pivoted back to Maya. The red icon glowed bright, undeniable. Maya's gaze swept across the crowd, then returned to Rowan. "You've put me on trial in public. Now the public sees you." A ripple of cheers surged, then exploded into applause. "Justice! Justice!" the chant grew, replacing fear with fire. And for the first time, Rowan stepped back not because he wanted to, but because the ground beneath him no longer answered to his command. The air on the courthouse steps felt electric-charged, combustible, seconds away from detonation. The chant of "Justice! Justice!" rolled like a drumline, pounding against the marble columns. Maya stood still at the center, her phone's red glow painting a target on Rowan's chest. He knew it, he saw it, and it drove him past reason. With a guttural roar, Rowan lunged again, seizing the briefcase he'd tossed aside earlier. He yanked it open with both hands, scattering more documents across the steps. Pages fluttered under the September breeze, landing at the feet of strangers. "These aren't hers," he shouted, veins rising along his neck. "Fraudulent papers, planted evidence she's a liar." The crowd gasped, voices cutting through his accusations. "We saw you take it from her." "That's theft." Phones zoomed closer, capturing every frantic motion. Rowan wasn't finished. He grabbed a handful of the documents and ripped them clean down the middle. The sound of tearing paper sliced through the air like a verdict. "Worthless," he bellowed. "This is what she brought to poison justice." But instead of silence, the move detonated the crowd's fury. A woman shouted, "That's evidence you destroyed." Another man added, "On camera! It's all on camera!" The chant returned, louder, angrier. "We see you! We see you!" Maya didn't flinch. She bent slowly, gathering one of the torn sheets that had drifted to her feet. Her fingers brushed the page, folding it neatly in half, as though restoring dignity to what Rowan had shredded. Then she straightened, eyes steady, voice even. "You've just destroyed your own defense." Rowan's fury boiled into violence. He shoved the briefcase against her chest, hard, forcing her back a step on the stone stair. The crowd screamed. Phones shook violently in people's hands. Someone cried out, "That's assault." Another voice shouted, "He pushed her." The younger officer surged forward, panic in his tone. "Captain, stop!" But Rowan's ears were deaf to reason. Maya steadied herself, heels catching the edge of the step. She raised her phone higher, the red icon pulsing like a beacon. Her words cut through the chaos, deliberate and cold. Protocol escalated. Board alert document destruction, physical assault. On the other end of the line, her assistant's voice came clear through her earpiece. "Confirmed. Legal team notified. Judges on standby." The color drained from Rowan's face, though his grip remained white-knuckled on the ruined papers. Around them, the chant thundered again, not just words but judgment. "We see you! We see you!" Maya's gaze sharpened, her tone measured like the first hammer of a gavel. "You don't realize it yet, Captain, but you've already lost this case." And in that moment, the courthouse steps were no longer his battleground. They were her courtroom. The courthouse steps pulsed with noise, phones lifted like 100 spotlights, chants crashing like waves against marble. Captain Rowan clutched the shredded documents, his chest heaving, his authority unraveling in real time. Maya hadn't moved since his shove. She stood centered, balanced, unshaken, her phone raised like a judge's gavel suspended in air. The red icon pulsed again, casting its glow across her calm face. She pressed the earpiece closer. Her voice was quiet, but deliberate. "Confirm escalation. Open full compliance log. Board visibility, unrestricted." On the other end, her assistant answered instantly, her words crisp, electric with urgency. "Protocol engaged. Johnson Equity Board is live. Compliance officers connected. Judges from Oversight Committee are watching now." The crowd erupted. A man near the front shouted, "Did you hear that? Judges are watching." The law student's jaw dropped as she looked at her phone. "It's true," she whispered. The feed just went public. Rowan froze mid-step, his face drained of color, fury collapsing into disbelief. "What? What did you just say?" Maya lowered her phone slightly, her gaze locking onto him. For the first time since she'd stepped onto those stairs, she allowed a hint of steel into her tone. "I'm Maya Johnson, Chief Executive Officer of Johnson Equity Group, the company that funded this courthouse's renovation, the board that underwrites its security, the same system you just broadcast your misconduct into." Gasps shattered the crowd. Phones snapped upward in unison, capturing the revelation. A woman covered her mouth, whispering, "She owns it. She actually owns it." Rowan staggered, words failing him. He looked to the younger officer, desperate for backup, but the rookie wouldn't meet his eyes. He stepped back, muttering under his breath, "She's telling the truth." The chant shifted once more, this time exploding into celebration. "CO! CO! CO!" Maya didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply turned her attention back to the captain, her tone steady, her control absolute. "You tried to erase me. You tore apart what you didn't understand. You assaulted the very person who built the ground under your boots." She lifted one of the torn documents still in her hand, holding it high for the cameras. "This is more than paper. It's proof. Proof that the system you swore to protect has already moved beyond you." And Rowan's knees bent slightly, as if the weight of her words was physical. His fingers slackened around the ruined pages, letting them drift to the stone. Maya's final sentence landed with the clarity of a verdict. "You thought this was your court, but it never was. It's mine." The crowd roared. Phones shook in hands. And in that instant, power shifted fully, irreversibly, to her. The revelation cracked the air like lightning. "It's mine." Maya's words echoed, replayed through dozens of live streams, magnified by the roar of the crowd. The chant surged again, this time not of protest, but of triumph. "CO! CO! CO!" Rowan's posture faltered. The crimson rage in his face drained into a chalk-white mask. His mouth opened, but no words came. For years, authority had been his armor. Now it was paper, thin, shredded in front of hundreds of witnesses. The younger officer, the rookie with the loose strap, took a step back, hands raised in surrender. His voice cracked. I didn't know, ma'am. I didn't know who you were." He looked to Rowan, shame flooding his features. "We can't do this. Not anymore." The law student raised her phone higher. Her voice carried, sharp and clear. "We all know who she is now, and we all saw what you did." The crowd answered with cheers, dozens of voices layering into one undeniable verdict. A woman in the back shouted, "It's over, Captain," a man added. "Step down before you bury yourself deeper." The pressure mounted, voices striking like waves, relentless and unstoppable. Rowan's hands trembled. The torn papers slipped through his fingers, scattering again across the steps. He glanced at the other officers for support, but their eyes avoided his, their boots shifting uneasily. Authority had abandoned him. Maya stood unwavering, phone still glowing in her hand. Her silence was louder than their excuses. Her presence alone reshaped the scene, no longer a standoff, but a reckoning. From the crowd, the man in the gray suit raised his voice once more. "We're all witnesses. Every second of this is live. Every word you've spoken is evidence against you." He turned his phone to the cameras, broadcasting Rowan's pale, stunned face. Rowan staggered backward, his shoulder colliding with the marble column behind him. The rookie officer muttered under his breath, "We're finished." The chant shifted again, sharper now, like a closing argument. "We see you! We see you!" And they did. Not just the crowd on the steps, but the thousands already watching online. Rowan's downfall wasn't whispered in court filings or buried in paperwork. It was public, irreversible. Maya lifted her chin slightly, her eyes sweeping the trembling figures before her. The stage was no longer contested. The courthouse steps, once his domain of intimidation, had become her arena of truth. The opposition had collapsed, and the judgment was only beginning. The courthouse steps no longer belonged to Captain Rowan. They no longer belonged to the officers who had ringed Maya like predators circling prey. They belonged to her and to every witness who had refused to stay silent. The chants shook the air, rolling like thunder between the marble pillars. "We see you! We see you!" Each syllable struck Rowan harder than any fist could. His hands trembled around the shredded documents, his lips parted. But the authority he once commanded had drained from his body like blood from a wound. Maya lifted her phone higher. The red icon pulsed with quiet menace, a beacon of judgment. Her voice, calm and deliberate, carried like a gavel's strike. Activate enforcement. Suspend precinct funding. Effective immediately. Oh. On the other end, her assistant's voice came clear through the earpiece, crisp and unshaken. Confirmed. Precinct 27 budget frozen. All officer credentials under review. Compliance lock engaged. Rowan's radio let out a shrill beep, then another. His badge flickered red, a small light embedded in its edge glowing like a scarlet warning. One by one, the other officers checked their devices. Each screen displayed the same blunt message. Access revoked. Gasps tore through the crowd. A woman near the front shouted, "She just shut them down!" Dozens of phones pivoted, zooming in on Rowan's chest, capturing the precise moment his authority died. The rookie officer with the loose helmet strap stumbled back, eyes wide. His own badge blinked red. He tore it from his chest as though it burned. "What the hell?" She froze us out. Panic flared in Rowan's eyes. "No, no, this isn't legal," he barked, his voice cracking into desperation. "You can't strip a precinct on your own say. So, you have no authority here." Maya stepped forward. Her heel struck the granite step like a gavel on wood. Then another step, then another, until she stood above him, her shadow cutting across his slumped figure. Her words fell with measured weight. "I can, and I just did." The chant shifted, exploding into celebration. "Justice! Justice!" The sound rolled like a wave down the courthouse plaza, surging stronger with every heartbeat. Rowan reached for his radio, clutching it like a lifeline, but the device sputtered with nothing but static. He shook it violently, as if force could resurrect his lost authority. You've destroyed my career," he rasped. Maya's gaze never wavered. Her tone was sharp as steel. "No, Captain. You destroyed it yourself when you chose humiliation over justice. When you treated power as a weapon instead of a duty." A murmur rippled through the crowd, then a cheer as the law student stepped forward, raising her phone high. "The world is watching," she declared, her voice fierce. "And the world has already decided." Applause surged, a roar of affirmation. Phones trembled in hands as hundreds of live streams carried Rowan's downfall beyond the courthouse steps, into homes, offices, classrooms. Everywhere truth demanded light. The rookie officer pulled off his helmet, his face pale with shame. He let the gear clatter against the steps. "I won't be part of this anymore," he said, shaking his head. "Not after what I've seen today." His defection drew another wave of cheers, sealing Rowan's isolation. Maya looked down at the shredded documents scattered like fallen feathers across the stairs. She crouched briefly, lifting one torn sheet with delicate precision, then stood tall again, holding it aloft for the cameras. She spoke with clarity. "This is more than paper. It's proof. Proof of the contempt shown here. Proof of what happens when arrogance blinds responsibility. And proof that the record will always outlast the destroyer." Rowan sagged against the marble column, his chest heaving. His badge continued to blink red, an unrelenting reminder of what he had lost. He tried to speak, but no words came, only silence, raw and broken. Maya raised her chin, her gaze sweeping the officers, the crowd, the phones, then returning to the man who had dared to call her an animal. Her voice carried the final blow. "You're dismissed, Captain Rowan. Permanently." The courthouse plaza erupted. Applause cascaded like a storm, drowning out every trace of Rowan's sputtering protests. Some cheered, some cried, some simply stood in awe of the woman who had turned humiliation into judgment. And Maya, calm, centered, immovable, lowered her phone, the red glow fading, her power undiminished. Justice had been delivered, and it had been seen by all. The roar of the crowd surged like a rising tide, washing over the courthouse steps. Captain Rowan sagged against the marble, his badge still pulsing red, a silent symbol of defeat. But Maya didn't look at him anymore. He was finished. The real verdict still needed to be spoken. She turned, slowly, to face the hundreds gathered students, parents, lawyers, onlookers, strangers who had become witnesses. Phones hovered in the air like lanterns, each recording not just her victory, but their own reflection in it. Maya lifted her voice, calm but unshakable. Justice doesn't collapse because of one corrupt officer. Justice collapses when good people stay silent. The law student's eyes glistened as she whispered, "She's talking to us." Ugh. Maya stepped higher on the stone stair, her figure framed against the courthouse doors. What happened here isn't just about me. It's about every woman told she doesn't belong. Every person turned away because of their skin, their name, or their clothes. It's about those who were silenced and those who refused to speak up. A hush fell. Even the chants quieted, giving her words space to resonate. She raised the torn document still in her hand. They tried to destroy evidence, but you all became the evidence. Your cameras, your voices, your courage. That's what holds the system accountable. Applause rippled, then swelled into cheers. People shouted her name. Others simply cried, overwhelmed. Maya let the noise build, then cut through it with one final line, each word sharp as a blade. Justice doesn't start inside a courtroom. It starts here on the steps, in the streets, in the way we treat each other before the trial even begins. Oh, the crowd erupted again, louder than ever. And for the first time since stepping into that storm, Maya allowed herself a small, resolute smile. The courthouse steps vibrated with applause, chants shaking the very air. Justice! Justice! The cameras stayed locked on Maya, her silhouette framed against the looming pillars like the embodiment of judgment itself. She lowered the torn paper in her hand, letting it drift to the ground. Her heels clicked as she stepped forward, past Rowan's slumped figure, past the fallen badges of his officers. She climbed the last stair until she stood at the courthouse doors, the threshold he tried to bar her from. Turning back to the crowd, she let the noise crest, then raised one hand. Silence fell like a curtain. Her voice was steady, sharp, undeniable. "You tried to strip me of dignity in a court I built, but dignity isn't yours to give or take. It's mine. And today, I've proven it belongs to all of us." A final beat. The weight of her words pressed into every chest, lingered in every ear. Then she dropped the closing line like a verdict carved in stone. "I don't need to record justice. I am the record." The crowd erupted cheers, tears, fists raised to the sky. Phones shook as live streams flooded with comments. Powerful, unstoppable, history. And Maya Johnson, Black woman CEO, pushed open the courthouse doors and walked inside not as a defendant, not as a victim, but as the authority who had already won.